even when it goes wrong, and I say really wrong, we can accuse and blame God, we can turn our back on him, or you can say, in spite of all of this going on, I know God is still good. Your attitude and perception and the way that you look at things. My wife has said I am the eternal optimist. And what she says, because of that, you're going to get burned. Because you're going to get taken advantage from time to time. And I'm going to tell you that's okay. That's okay, because if you weren't, you wouldn't be who you are.
Right. Hello, everyone. You are listening to Grace and New Life. And today we have one of our best friends, Adam Koch, with us. Hi, Adam.
Hello. How are you?
I'm awesome. How are you?
Fantastic.
Thank you for being here with us today. I know you have stories to share, but we wanted to understand a little bit about you first. So start off, tell us a little bit about you. Who was this little boy when he was young? How does the family look like? What did he do? All naughty things. And where did you grow up? All of those kind of good
You
stuff.
want me to go that far back?
I do.
All right. So we want to start from the beginning.
In the beginning.
In the beginning. I have got plenty of stories. Most of them, actually, believe it or not, a lot of folks know me in the community. Most of them are family friendly. So that's, I mean, this will work. Long and short, I grew up out just outside of the Beaumont area here in Texas, and I was born in New Orleans. A lot of folks don't know that. I don't remember it because I was drug away at about 6 months old.
Okay.
So obviously I don't remember that time. But I grew up out just outside of Beaumont. Grew up with my mom. I grew up with my stepdad. We grew up out. I grew up out in the country-ish. It was in really the swamp, if you want to call it that. Very, very little money. We had a little single-wide mobile home out there that was not pretty. It was going to win no awards for being the nicest house on the block. But what it was, and this is important, what it was structurally and mechanically sound. So that's what set me on a path. Is I would see my stepdad, if something would go wrong, and trust me, on a 70 model mobile home, things went wrong all the time, especially living in the swamp where there's water intrusion all the time. Things had to get fixed.
Right.
But when there's no money to really make it pretty, well, you just make it right.
Yeah.
Part of my history was to see my stepdad and see how hard he worked just to make things right. See my mom and how hard she worked out at the community.
Right.
And so I took a lot of my work ethics from those. My first car when I was 16 was a 62 Ford Falcon, which sounds amazing. Except we paid a grand total of $250 for it. Now, this was back in the early 90s, but still, it was $250 is not an expensive car at all. And it was a piece of junk, but it was awesome because it was mine.
Right.
And I could barely get it going more than 45 miles an hour. I could barely get I could never go actually into Beaumont. I could go to work and go to school and come home, or hopefully come home.
Hopefully.
But it was mine.
Right.
Oh, one thing I wanted to say, growing up, I did not grow up in a Christian home. We did not go to church growing up. But I remember one time when I was about yay big, and for those on audio, yay is about maybe 3 foot high. When I was about, I don't know, I was probably 6 or 7 years old, probably less than that. They were talking about Adam and Eve and how Adam was the first person to ever come on the world, first man. I could not wrap my head around the fact that I knew my mom was older than me, but yet I was the first person. It messed with me for years until I figured that was not me. That was not the right Adam. So,
Well, and then you never asked the question.
I couldn't. I was,
Wow, you're the first man.
I
Adam,
was.
It's all your fault, Adam.
I get blamed for a lot of stuff, so it's probably not too far off.
So not a Christian home.
It was not a Christian home. It wasn't a. I have to be careful with this because it wasn't an ungodly home necessarily, but it wasn't a Christian home. We didn't go to church. We never had spiritual conversations, but we lived life as a family and we loved each other.
Right.
That's how it was. I got my first job because work was important. I got my first job at 14.
14.
Which, for other folks listening, they're like, well, why'd you wait so late? For us, 14 is way early. And I did it, and it was, stocked shelves at a convenience store. That was 2 miles up the road. I'd ride my bike there, stock the shelves, sweep the floor, get in the cooler and make sure all the drinks were in position. And then they would pay me money under the table. Here's some cash, go home. And next day I'd come over and do it again. And I did that because I needed clothes. I needed to be able to buy jeans, the Walmart specials.
Right.
I was happy to do so. I didn't know anything different. I didn't realize that in today's society, you're supposed to have everything handed to you. Okay, you're really not. I'm saying that tongue in cheek. But that's the mentality of a lot of folks. Not everybody, but a lot of folks. But I didn't know any better. This is just what I did. So I don't look back at that and say, oh, woe was me. Look what I had to do. It's look what I did.
Back then, it seems natural to you, reasonable. It was just coming to you. There's no reason not to do it. Yeah. I grew up in a poor family back in my country. And I understand, single mom. My dad left the family when I was 6, 7 years old. And so my mom had to raise up 2 kids. She has done so many works. And so at young age, well, I won't tell our audience that I'm much younger than you, but at a younger age, I also, started to help mom and sister. And my sister was definitely taking on more responsibilities, not only for our own clothing and stuff like that, but schools, but helping out the family. I think that is huge, shaped up your personality, your character that God has already put in your life. Now, back out a little bit. So you grow up in a poor family. There was no spiritual conversation, didn't go to church, and you started to work young age. And of course, you didn't tell me anything you did naughty, as a young boy.
I was the perfect child. Perfect.
Yeah, we all know that. So, but when did faith kick in? When did how did this journey started with God?
So if you had asked me that question, I would tell you that journey started on Easter Sunday of my senior year in high school, 1994.
Wow.
If you ask me that now, it actually, I can recognize things that had occurred, the knocking on the door, God thumping me on the head like, hey, I'm here, you need to look. A little bit earlier than that. I didn't grow up in a Christian family. However, I had friends that did. And they, I had one really good friend of mine, and he and his family, when I was a freshman in high school, they were the church folk. You know what I mean? There's some churchy people.
Can be annoying sometimes.
Sometimes, but he would invite me all the time. Hey, come to my youth group. Come to my youth group. I'm like, I don't want to do that. It's not my thing or whatever it was. But he kept trying, he kept at it. And, some of the other folks that I knew, they kept trying. And it wasn't like, oh, I can't believe you're not coming. It's like, hey, you ready? Come on.
Yeah.
Okay. So over the summer before my senior year in high school, he invited me to a concert, and I was like, sure, I'll go to a concert. So it was a new song concert. And I went there, and of course, I was a band nerd, big time band nerd. I love music. I played the trumpet. One time I was fairly decent at it. I don't have the chops anymore. It's probably been not this will tell you how old it is. It's been over 30 years since I played the trumpet. So
I want to hear it.
no, you do not. You gonna do. But at the time, I wasn't an awful player. It was, for a high school kid. But I love music. And so we went to the New Song concert, and it was amazing. I was just enjoying the heck out of it. And then they did an altar call, and I was like, what's going on here?
Yeah.
Like, what is this?
Was that the first time?
That was really the first kind of like,
Yeah.
So you feel the tug,
Right.
and they do the thing where, everybody bow your head, and, if you're not right with God, raise your hand. That's not how they said it. It's a much more diplomatic way than I did. But, if you don't have a relationship with Jesus, raise your hand. Well, everybody, and my hand went up, and that was it. I wasn't walking up there. I wasn't doing anything else, but that was when it kind of like, maybe there's something more. And so, but I didn't know anything about anything. This is the part that really made me look back on it and really make me question things, is the very beginning, probably first few weeks of my senior year in high school. We're all standing around with a group of friends, and we got these young freshmen coming in, and there's these group of girls that were friends with some of the other folks that were all going to church together, so they already had their little friend group going. And so I was chatting with them. Of course, this is senior guy talking to freshman girls. It can be a little creepy. It wasn't meant to be. It wasn't that way at all. But they were just talking, and one of them asked, just started bringing up spiritual things, and they asked me point blank, Adam, do you know how you get to heaven? And I'm like,
that is the question.
and I said, yeah, if you're just good enough, you can get in. And
well,
one of them got it wasn't hey, let me tell you how it really is. She got mad at me. She's like, that's not how it is. Oh my gosh. And I'm sitting there confused, like, what is going on? Okay, well, whatever. But I look back at that now, and though her reaction may not have been the perfect reaction, it may have been the exact reaction that I needed, because what it did is it got me thinking, well, why would that response make her so mad?
So mad.
Like, it doesn't make sense to me.
Yeah.
So it just kind of started opening me up, and I started looking a little, I wasn't diving into the books. One of the things that I shouldn't hold this as pride at all is in my entire high school career, I never checked one single book out of the library, and that was on purpose, because I didn't. It was just a stupid goal of mine. It made zero sense academically, but.
Adam has a weird goals, just so everybody understands.
It was when you're young, you're dumb, and that was a dumb thing to do. But I did. So it wasn't that I was going out and grabbing books and researching, and I didn't have the internet back then. But I started asking questions. Ask my buddy. His name is Eric. I don't talk to him near what I need to. It's probably been a good 15 years since I've talked to him, and that's a shame. But, in high school, I count his one of the founding reasons why I started to look for faith.
Yeah.
He's one of the reasons why I believe to this day that I'm alive and that I have found Christ. So, okay. On Easter Sunday, however, it took that long, right? It took months and months and months. And finally, on Easter Sunday that morning, in the midst of 150 folks, I walked up to the front, and that was the day that I gave my heart to Jesus. How
did you feel? Recall that memory of having the courage to step out.
The most courageous or hardest part is that first step.
Yes.
Okay, I'm doing it.
Did you feel like...
I'm doing it. No, I'm not doing it. I'm doing it. Okay, let me just... No. Okay, I'm going. But once you make that step, then the next one is easier and easier and easier.
I'm going. Did you feel like something pushing you going?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And it might have been my friend, like, go. But no, it wasn't. It was pushing. It could have been dragging. I don't know. But yes, there was a force of some sort. I mean, I'm not calling supernatural force. Yeah. I'm not even saying God was pushing, but my heart was, I would say God was ready.
Right. Maybe quite a few of our listeners, they're not even quite open to the idea of God yet. I have quite a few friends all over the world. They don't know, just like I was. Explain a little bit, because for many of us, there was this mystery of you committed to Christ and then all of a sudden your life has been changed. Everything has been good and you're just a happy dude. Everything is perfect, which in reality is not true. So what happened right after you stepped out and you accepted Jesus Christ as your Savior? What happened after that for the following years in your life?
Let's take the following 3 hours.
Okay.
It immediately. So I come home. This is after church. My family wasn't there for when I walked down the aisle. So remember, Easter Sunday. We don't celebrate Easter at home except for the Easter Bunny.
But they didn't know where you go. Where did you go?
Yeah. They knew where I was church, but they didn't know that I was walking down the aisle.
Okay.
It's like I said, we did not have spiritual conversations at home. I come home. My stepdad and my mom aren't there. I'm like, well, this is weird. They're never gone on Sunday. My neighbor walks over and says, we can't, this is before cell phones. We didn't have pagers. We didn't have anything. You need to go to the hospital. Your mother was actually taken away in an ambulance. I had to get a ride to the hospital to find out what's going on. My mom had a brain aneurysm. So that was, again, the same day, same afternoon that I accepted Christ. So she had a brain aneurysm. And she was given an incredibly low percentage of living through the night. She did. But immediately my faith was tested.
Right.
And I am not a strong Christian, y'all. Not at that point. I was a baby.
Yeah.
I was the gazelle walking for the very first time, all wobbly. And I think the church family that I was now in may have been one of the saving graces for my salvation being so early. Them coming together, them supporting me, supporting my family, was just ginormous for me. They did not leave me alone. Mom lived through the night. Okay, great. She's probably not going to make the next night. She lives through the next night and the next night and the next night. Before long, they're like, we think she's going to pull through.
Wow.
Now, the effect is she essentially it's going to be like she had a pretty bad stroke.
Right.
So when she finally got out of the hospital, and this was months later, I had graduated. They had wheeled her in on a wheelchair, head shaved, scars, all of this to my high school graduation, which she does not remember to this day. She had to relearn to walk. She had to relearn to talk. She still has a weird disconnect. Certain words like cake and donuts, they will forever be mixed up in her mind. She can't get it straight. There's certain words that are completely gone that will never come back. And honestly, we've been able to kind of use some humor around that, to be honest with you. There's this one fun story is we had this little poodle, and the poodle would kind of chew on her own leg or something like that. And her lip would get stuck and look like she's smiling at you. And for a year, my stepdad and I would mess with her because she would look at that, and that dog would look up and look, she's smiling at Mom. And she's like, that dog is smiling at me. And we're like, Mom, we have no clue what you're talking about. like the dog is just a dog. What do you know? And she was so mad at us when we finally let her know that we were messing with her, and then she left. So, but you got to have some kind of fun, right? Yeah. All that to say is immediately my faith was tested that day.
So did you pray, or did you know how to pray?
I didn't know how to pray.
No.
I didn't know how to pray like the people I heard in church.
Right.
I didn't know how to make it eloquent. I didn't know how to make it, all of these nice churchy words and all of that. All I could really say was, God help.
Right.
God help. God help. God help.
So you did pray.
I did. Absolutely.
It's personal. It's a real conversation. It's a short conversation. He can read your mind. You don't really need to use beautiful words. But you did pray.
Correct.
When Mom was going through the condition. And prayer worked.
It absolutely did.
Did that help to build up your faith? What happened after?
I actually don't. I think it absolutely did. part of my story also is I had a full ride scholarship to go play music at McNeese in Lake Charles, Louisiana.
Wow.
So I was gonna go to school for music, had a full ride scholarship to go there, and obviously with my mom, I decided to take a different route. And so I was a little disappointed because now I have to pay for school. I got a little bit of a scholarship to go to Lamar University to play music, but it wasn't a full ride. Mm-hmm. So I did that for two semesters. Since I was paying for it, ran out of money. And dropped out of school at that point. But during that time, I had gotten very active in the church there that my buddies went to, First Baptist in Vidor, and just met life-changing people there. Absolutely life-changing people that poured their soul, poured their heart into me, and helped me, not only with working with everything going on with my mother, but just become a Christian man. Because remember, this was the end of my senior year in high school. I have to go out in the world and be a man. Yeah. And, or to be a Christian man. So how to do that. And so those relationships were invaluable to me. And it's at that point that I also decided to drop the trumpet and actually go more towards guitar.
And you're so awesome at guitar. You never played for me. I need to hear that. I need to get a piece of music to be the intro music.
I love it.
For this episode. But
we'll create something.
So you're this young man. You were facing your mother's health issue, and you need to take care of things for the family, for yourself, and you need to change the school route. That route changes your future.
Isn't that weird?
Yeah. And when did you meet your wife? Tell us about your wife.
So you're talking about the route and every little step. You can look back on your life, and if this one teeny tiny little thing didn't occur, you wouldn't have been in this position or there. And so, long story short, left Lamar University. Then I floundered around for a little bit, working some jobs. 2.5 years later, I end up in the basically the Porter area here in Texas, just north of Houston. Went to North Harris Montgomery County Community College, which is now called Lone Star for those in the area. And so then I had an opportunity to move to Bryan College Station. And when I moved to Bryan College Station, I had a good buddy of mine that I went to high school with, was managing an apartment there, and he needed a dude who could fix potties. And I am a professional potty fixer man. He needed a maintenance guy. And I, through my life, I've learned how to fix a lot of stuff and be pretty handy. And so I went there with the promise of a free apartment, be the maintenance guy there. So when I got there, I immediately enrolled into Blinn College, which is right there in Bryan. Went there for a year, applied to A&M, got into A&M, and I was originally an engineering major. But if you've kind of followed the timeline, I hadn't really had much in the way of math classes since high school. And so long story short on that is I flunked out of engineering pretty quick because I couldn't do the math. Now, to answer your question, during that time I was an engineering major, I was also involved in an organization called ABS, Association of Baptist Students. I was a guitar player, so I played music with those folks over there. They had every Thursday night, they had what's called Reload, and it was a thing where you come in there and it's a worship time. It's a time to hear a good message. Your Sunday night church service, but on Thursday night with a group of friends. And it was a fantastic time. Met a lot of folks. But there was one semester where once I enrolled into A&M that I couldn't go on a Thursday night. Finally, that semester ends. I come back, and I notice there's this new girl out there. I'm like, hey, who's that? And she's looking up on the stage like, who in the world is that? He's kind of dorky, and he's looking at me.
This is the way Adam described the romantic moment.
Oh, you want to hear how romantic it is? So this is probably about 3 or 4 weeks after I noticed her. So the building for the Association of Baptist Students, there's a small parking lot, there's a little area of grass, and then her apartments, which her apartments were not very special either. But and she'll tell you that when she comes on eventually, she'll tell you the story of that. It's a pretty low-end apartment, but that's okay. But while we're all sitting out there and just kind of chatting, so I asked her, hey, there's the new Toy Story 2 movie coming out. Do you want to go see it? She's like, sure, I'll go see it. So she went up to her roommate. She's like, I think I got asked out on a date, but I'm not really sure. And her roommate conversation is, how do you not know? And she's like, well, I don't know if it's just him or if it's a group of people going. The story goes, when her roommate met me, she's like, I understand. He's pretty awkward. So,
poor Crystal.
Yes.
So you met, you asked her out, everything went well.
Sure.
All of a sudden you got married.
That's how every relationship goes. So no, she sprayed cheese on me at the first date, and I think I called her a big fat head, or at some point it just all right, there's a comedian joke, and he says something about fat head, and I said, big fat head, and she said something that made me think, look, I have no filter. It just came out, big fat head. I didn't mean to. So from that point on, we learned that she has a sense of humor, and her favorite thing in the world is when I say something stupid that I don't mean it, that I try to pull it back, like literally grab the words from the air and pull it back. And she loves the terror in my face when that occurs. So, thankfully, I thank God for that.
Okay, Crystal, if you're listening, we can all tell Adam loves you so much.
I do.
I know one more thing that Crystal loves. She likes crispy treat.
Rice Krispie treat.
Right.
Oh,
Rice Krispie
yeah.
treat. You said she loves the treat better than a diamond ring. Was that? No, that was not true. So Crystal is here, godly woman, entered your life, and you guys got married, got kids. How does the faith look like between you two, or as whole together?
She is a very godly woman. She has a very unique connection with God, strong, and she is not your typical in worldly woman expectations. She was one that her goal, her worth is not just in the job, not just in the degree that she has, not in the things that a lot of folks think are important right now. Her worth was being able to impart her knowledge, her experience, and her Christian values on her kids. To differing degrees of success, obviously.
Yeah, that's huge. And I think that's one of the most important job that God has put in women's life. That's our duty. That's part of it. Right. I
agree. And my duty is to lead the family. And does that mean that I have the heavy hand? And that
does that mean you change the diapers?
Oh, absolutely means I change the diapers.
You're a good dad.
In fact, I changed my son's very first diaper ever, and it was nasty. My wife would go on these scrapbook retreats or these scrapbook weekends, and because she's a big paper crafter. I honestly wish she was into shoes because it would be cheaper. But she's got this craft room just full of stuff, and look, it brings her joy. We all have hobbies and things that bring joy to us. This brings her joy. So when the kids were young, we would go out on, or she would go out on these retreats, and it would be a weekend long retreat where she would go, and maybe another lady would go with her, and they would have a blast, just a blast. And one of them said, well, I can't go because I don't have anybody to keep the kids for the weekend. And she's like, well, you have a husband, right? And she says, no, he won't keep them alone for the weekend. He doesn't know how to do any of that. And Crystal's like, well, just send them to Adam. Adam will do it. What's a couple more kids? Big deal, And that's it. This is my philosophy on kids. Yeah, if they get unruly, especially the young ones. You just put them in the bathroom, put some paper down on the floor, throw some Cheerios out, open the toilet bowl. There's water there. They'll be fine for hours.
All right, this is for our listeners.
No,
Adam's starting a daycare. Please don't go
please,
there.
please don't do that. That is a joke. I don't do that. I've never done that, but it's funny.
So, Crystal, I love her. She is such a patient woman, full of love. You can just tell how much she loves his family and her kids and her God. Now, you have came along from not Christian family. Now you are in a Christian family. You built a Christian family on your own, raise your kids in the church. I know you serve in the church. You play music in the church. You sing in the church. Doesn't mean life is easy.
No.
Tell me something. I want to hear Adam's heartbroken stories. I know, I'm so mean.
I was having a conversation with Crystal, my wife, talking about the struggles of life, and really, one of the things, and it kind of took her aback a little bit, is I said, it feels like I've lived a really charmed life. And she's like, what are you talking about? You grew up poor, had to start working at 14. Your car was a junk. You got, your mom had all these health issues. You couldn't go to the school you were supposed to. You had to drop out. You went into all this debt. You did this. You got fired from a job after we adopted and that's another story. After we adopted our daughter, and it has taken all of this adversity, and I know what she was doing. She was trying to show me how it hasn't been easy. Mm-hmm. But it's your mindset. So she says, what are you talking about? You've had all of these things, yet you're still the guy looking for joy or looking at joy. And it really kind of hit me. She's right. I've had plenty of adversity. I've had a ton of it. But I don't look at it as something that should keep me down.
Right.
I don't look at this bad thing that's just happened. Now, I might wallow in self-pity for about a day or two. But then you got to get over it, right? So I don't look at it as that thing that's going to keep me from doing it. I guess I'm hard-headed. Now I have a reason to succeed in spite of.
Right.
Things that have been tough. I'll throw an addiction to you. Mm-hmm. I don't have an addiction like a lot of folks do. I don't have alcohol as an addiction. I don't have porn as an addiction. I don't have drugs as an addiction. But what I did have, and I've purposely stayed away from, is a video game addiction, like a lot of men had at some point. Mm-hmm. And so I talk about struggles with my wife. I got hooked up with a game called World of Warcraft years ago. It absorbed my life. Mm-hmm. So much to the point to where I realized 2 weeks had gone by and my wife hadn't spoken a word to me.
Wow.
Not a word. And as soon as I realized that, it was a cold turkey event. Stopped right then. And I had to. Or I could have kept playing, but it would have been just me in life. Because there's no way we would have been able to make it as a couple. Now, neither one of us believe that would have been worthy of divorce, but we would have been alone.
Yeah.
That changed my life.
I think for anybody that's the experience of stepping out from addiction, what you just said, it doesn't matter. Sometimes we think this is not real bad addiction.
Yeah, it's a silly addiction. It's a video game. But it took all of my vision off my family, and it isolated me.
That's what addiction is. It takes your life away from being who you should be, but it started to take your life away. Then that's what we need to watch out for.
Right.
You mentioned earlier about this adoption. Mm-hmm. What was the reason were you looking for adopting?
Oh, no, we, so it is my niece. Okay. So legally we did not adopt, but she came to live with us at 20 months old. And, she was with us until she got married about this time last summer. And now she's living with her husband. She's 21, and she's out there living life. It's not been easy for her. So she came to live with us because I got a call. I was working in Waco, so I was driving back and forth between Bryan and Waco, and in Texas. For those that don't know, that's literally a 90-mile drive there and a 90-mile drive back. It's all open highway, so it took me exactly an hour and a half because I sped. I got a call one day from my dad. My dad said, "Your sister's kids have been taken by CPS." And I said, "Okay, where are they going?" And he said, "We don't know." 2 of the kids went to go live with their father, and they had a third that's just kind of out there, and that was Dee. Dee did not have the ability to go live with her father. So I called my wife immediately. I said, "Hey, here's what's happening." And her comment to me was, "Okay, how many kids are coming to live with us?" It wasn't okay, what do we do? It wasn't let's pray on it. It's, how many kids are we getting? And we had been married, Crystal and I had been married for, I think, a year and a half. We had planned to wait a few years to have kids because we wanted to go live the childless married,
for a little while. Enjoy the life.
Go do some stuff and go see the things and, just enjoy that part of life that we'll never get back. Because we'll never be that young and that I'll never be that skinny. So immediately we have Dee in our life, and she's 20 months old, 100% nonverbal, did not know how to communicate. And so it bless her heart, she had a rough start to life.
Yeah.
And so we've had to work through a lot of adversity on her. For her, we've had counseling consistently from she came into our home till technically still has a counselor that she talks to from I think probably once a month now. But we had her in weekly, and it wasn't just for her to overcome the adversity that she's gone through, but for us to also be able to know how to deal with her and deal with her the way that she needs to be able to. And it has not been easy. If you talk to her, she's like, growing up was tough. We're thinking that we provided her a fantastic place to be free, to explore, to become a powerfully empowered, and I'm sensitive to that word because I think the word empowered has been weakened with today's society words, but a truly empowered woman that can handle things.
Yeah. But you adopted Dee, and then you lost your job.
And then I lost my job. It was so we adopted Dee. And we brought her in, and I would leave in the morning before she would wake up. I would get home by the time it's bedtime. So when you have a new kiddo in your house, when you can only see them on the weekend, it's really hard to build a relationship.
Right.
So we decided, let's move to Waco. So we moved to Waco. And 30 days later, after we moved in, is the first time I'd ever put pictures up on the walls in any of our moves that quickly. I had all the pictures up. The house was set up. I lose my job 30 days later. So now the home we had in Bryan was already leased out to somebody else. We had nowhere to live. The job I had in Waco was an apartment job. I was managing a number of apartment complexes for a company in Waco. And so I got a free apartment out of this gig. It was great. But I ended up losing my job for a very corporate reason. Apparently, I don't play well in the corporate setting, so who knew? And so we had nowhere to live, and that's how we ended up in Conroe. You're talking about the little steps, the things that push you. And what this was, and Crystal will tell you this, what all of this was the whole God thumping us on the head saying, get out of the Bryan College Station area.
Right.
God moved us. He used the situation to thump us on the head because I was going to live in that area forever. I was never going to leave. And Crystal's like, we're not supposed to be here. We're not supposed to be here. We need to go. And I'm like, I don't want to. You can't make me. And so
somebody can make you.
Somebody can make you, exactly. It may not be the way that we want to, but I'm calling Crystal on the way home one day, and I tell her again, we're going to have to find somewhere else to live. I just got fired. So she's freaking out because she had left her job so as to go to Waco. So we had no income, no nothing. So one of my roommates in college, one of my best friends to this day, his grandmother had gone into a nursing home. And so they had a house that was open, and they said, and I knew his parents, they were like my second set of parents. I know them really well. They said, we have this home in Conroe that you can come live rent free, just pay for the taxes and some maintenance.
Wow.
So that's what got us to Conroe, is we had somewhere that we could actually live. And it just happened to be also close to the CPS office we're having to work through with the visitation for D.
So I know God's hands are behind all of this.
100%.
But just from the surface of the whole situation you described, I would have to think, D, if it's not for her, I would not meet you. I would not have met you, right?
I 100% agree with that.
That's how life worked out. You said everything pretty easy. And I think it has a lot to do with your mindset. I've never heard complaining from Adam's mouth. Literally, or you were joking about something, but you are always the light in the room, encouraging people. I know you serve in different communities. You're the president with the Reveille networking group. And you're now having a business for how many years?
20
years. But just back out that timeline. You got fired. And then you started the business very, very soon after that.
Yep.
Don't you see this as another kick? Now look back 21 years ago, when that all happened. What would you say about all this situation? Tell us about that journey.
I'll be honest with you. Even when I was going through it, I don't think look, you don't know this. A lot of folks don't know this about me. I do have a tendency at times to get a little depressed. I mask it with humor pretty well. Sometimes I need that encouragement to continue to take that, like I said earlier with my salvation experience, to take that first step. And once I can do that, then the second step to get out of that depression becomes so much easier. It's that first step. So Crystal has been instrumental in getting me to take that first step. If you're in a depressive state, you're not seeing things in a normal way.
Right.
Now, I will be blunt. For me, there was never the idea of taking my life. Now, could they have considered me clinically depressed? Crystal says absolutely. I don't know. I'm, of course, I'm looking at it from a different vantage point. But it wasn't long after I lost my job, and then I couldn't find another one because honestly, I did not want to get back in that industry. It's nothing against the industry. There's folks that do fantastic in that world, and they're needed. And they, as far as property management goes, my heart wasn't there.
Right.
I wanted to own my own business. And so I had some opportunities. So I looked at being a business owner, and I was pretty handy. And so I could possibly do some form of construction company or a, like a trade, like an HVAC company or something like that. But man, that's hot. That's those guys work really hard every day. I like to work hard, but on my own time. So, and I do like air conditioning. So, and as I tell people, I look at my hands. I'm like, do these look like the hands of a man that does manual labor? They
play guitar. Yes,
they do now. They look a little bit more than they used to, but. I wanted to own my own business. I wanted to run my own show because, look, I've got pushback, and this is probably a character flaw, I guess. I push back hard against people that are pushing against me, be it pretty much any walk of life. If you're pushing me and say I have to do something, well, I'm going to figure out a way that I don't have to do it. If you want me to do it and you ask me to do it, let's go. Yeah. But so anyway, so the corporate environment was not for me. Owned my own business, looked at my bank account, and I'm like, there's not enough. I can't open a store. I got, I'd have no money sitting in there. I'm working off of unemployment. I looked at, okay, what can I start with that's just something but sweat equity. insurance became the thing. I hooked up with a recruiter for a farmer's agency. So I started out, and look, it was tough. And there's a number of things that were tough about it when I started my agency. One, started from scratch, no money. Didn't know anything about the insurance world. So I had some training. Great. I had some folks within the district to teach me. Great. It was great. But I was way up in Conroe, Texas, north of Houston, not in Houston. So I was it's what's called the redheaded stepchild. It basically means I'm the last thought of anybody. Of course, my son is the redheaded child, and I think about him all the time because he makes me. And during that time when I started the agency, and this is going to scare a lot of folks, this was back in, so this is 2004 when I started the agency. The first 2 years I was in business, I went right at $80,000 in credit card debt.
Ooh.
So that would terrify most folks. And I'll be honest with you, I was not unterrified.
That was 20 years ago.
It was 20 years ago. $80,000 in credit card debt.
It would terrify me now.
Well, but why did I do it? I was trusting in my ability to get this business off the ground. Or if I was going to, if I didn't, I was going to fail spectacularly. Mm-hmm. But I was going to give everything I can. And I needed marketing money. I needed, I worked out of the house. It was just me, no employees. But there's things we still had to do. We had to pay for vehicle. We had to pay for, even though I was renting essentially, or had a home essentially rent free, there were still expenses that were involved with that. And that only lasted for 10 months anyway before we got booted out by, there's another story. Not the folks that let me live in there, but a relative said, no, you can't have somebody living free in mom's house. Oh. We got to charge money and make money off this thing. So anyway,
starts to need to pay for the house.
Exactly. So all I have to say is really, really, really did not want to work for somebody else. Started my own business, went way far in debt. But luckily 2 years after that, I had paid 100% of that debt off.
2 years.
2 years after. So 2
years.
2 years.
Wow. That was 20 years ago.
That was 20, yeah. All of that started 20 years ago.
$80,000. That was a lot, and you paid it off in 2 years. Yep. You must be a very hard worker.
Sure. I don't want to say I'm a very hard worker. I do the things that need to be done, when they need to be done, how they need to be done.
So you're saying you're a smarter worker.
I think so. And this is another thing that I think is vitally important. People today talk about the work-life balance. It's all about the work-life balance. And I'm here to tell you right now, you're right. It is absolutely about the work. Now, during the week, I would work really late, but the weekends were for my family. And in 20 years, I can count on one hand how many times I have worked in the business or for the business on a weekend.
On a weekend. So
never on a Sunday.
Don't call Adam on Sunday for insurance or don't even try. So 2 years you paid off the debt. So 20 years later, Adam has this business for 20 years and you have a very, very good firm and people work for you. Mm-hmm. And I want you to talk about something you mentioned before. The positive attitude in your life. And if you didn't tell us today, I would never guess that you would have depression issues, which got me thinking, on the other side, for people who has depression issues, whichever level they are at, they understand what it looks like. And I think that is actually, if you're looking at from the other angle, it is a gift for this group of people to be able to have empathy. And also, they are the ones, they have more reason to step out of the box to encourage one another at a time. They can sense that, and they can take that dear to heart, and they can step out to be that light in the room to encourage others. And that makes sense now. That makes sense to me now. And I know, Adam, you told me before randomly, just you were not bragging at all, just we were talking about some business stuff and you mentioned, take care of your employees, take care of them, take care of their lives, you step out of the box and do something I know many employers would not do, especially small business owners. They're struggling with money. Business owners, we all understand this. Nothing is easy. You're walking on ice many times. People don't see, like,
Right.
oh, actually walking on the ice, don't know where it will crack and when you can fall, but you step out even when you have challenges financially or whatever. You could step out to do something for your employees.
It isn't all about the money, though. They have to be able to pay the bills. You got to pay your folks right. Especially if they're doing a great job for you. There's a lot of folks out there talking about, working, but they're really not wanting to work. And that's a shame because, if you can show your value, and maybe it's because they don't want to work because they've had awful managers and they've ruined that mindset for them. They've put in all the effort and they weren't rewarded for it. I think part of that is you got to remember that I think I kind of opened this up in another conversation we had is what do we deserve? There's only one thing that we as people and human beings deserve, and that's eternal damnation, but for the grace of God. So what do we deserve in our working environment? Well, if you look at it from that mindset, well, I guess just a place to work. Do you deserve that owner or that manager that's going to take care of you? Well, you may not deserve it, but it sure would be nice, wouldn't it? So if you're managing folks, you got to think that, it's not all about the money. You also have to realize it's not about pushing your people, but guiding your people.
Don't push them, especially if they're like you.
If they're like me, I will push back and we're going to get nothing done. And it's going to be bad for everybody. So, but if we can guide, if we can collaborate, if we can, if this is how it's done, but do you think there's a better way to do it? No? Okay, well then let's keep doing with this. Or yes, you do. Well, let's try it and see what happens. Yeah. Guide your folks, work with them. But one of the biggest things I've found is, again, it comes back to that work-life balance. Now, we are not a retail establishment that's open till 12 or a restaurant, so timing is a little bit different for us, but my office opens from 8:30 to 5:30. I do not want my folks there past 5:30. If they're there, and if they're there for one project and they're just trying to get it done, okay, that's fine. If they're there consistently after, well, that means we don't have enough people or systems or the right things to make this more productive so you can leave by 5:30. So we need to work on that. So the phones automatically shut off. They go straight to voicemail after 5:30. So you can't get direct. Now, if you know their direct line, you can, but you can't call into the main line and the phones will ring. I'm going to say something controversial here. But I am not a fan of kindergarten graduations. I know that's awful, but I think it's silly. I think it is a silly thing to celebrate a kid going from kindergarten for first grade. But there's one person that it's not silly to. And you know who that is? It's that kindergartner. It's that kid that's in that class. And as silly as I think it is, for that kindergarten, it's important, and to see and to be involved in your kids' lives, especially when they're that young. If that kid is graduating from a silly little kindergarten to first grade, but mom or dad is not there,
right?
It could be a lasting moment. They might not realize it's a lasting moment. So I make it a point, if you have a kid that's doing a silly graduation, I know I keep saying that, but, for them to be able to show up to that is important, not only for the kid, but for the parent, and they have the ability to do that. I've got one that she's got she has a kid that plays college softball, and they were playing in the regionals. They made it to the regionals. Small school made it to the regionals, and she came to me. She's like, they've never been to it's been a long time since they've been to regionals. They may never go back. This is like the only time I might be able to see it. Can I go? I'm like, why are you asking? Yes, you need to go to that. That's awesome. That same employee, when she was first hired, was right before Harvey. She was with me a couple of months before Harvey hit, which is, for those that aren't from the area, is a big flood.
It's a big flood.
Big hurricane came through and flooded a lot of area around here. A lot of homes were destroyed. Her apartment flooded. She came into the work the next day. I'm like, what are you doing here? You need to be taking care of this. She's like, I can't afford to be off a week to take care of this. I'm like, that's not the question. Go, you're not going to get docked and paid. It's really not that big of a deal. I mean, look, it is, as a business owner, labor is a big deal. It's one of our biggest revenue expenses, correct. But it's the cost of doing business.
Yeah.
So none of that is a pat on Adam's back. All of that is just taking care of your business, taking care of your folks.
And I truly believe, Adam, I think you are one of the examples that I look up to, because I think God didn't call everybody. He didn't call everybody to be a pastor. Didn't call everybody to minister. Mm-hmm. But everything can be a ministry in
Absolutely.
our hands. And God put workers in corporate world. He put artists, and not you. He put artists in a place where they should play, where to you that is double duty. And they put business people in a business and workplace to impact people. It doesn't really matter how many Bible verses you memorize and how many picture of Bible verses you write out and you put in your office, or how many things you can quote from the Bible or whatsoever. It matters how you treat one another, and it matters how people can get that.
100%.
You walk the way Jesus Christ walked. You want people to see him from you.
100%.
Right. So I see that. I can definitely see that happening in your life. Now, it's just fascinating to think back. Adam was this little poor baby boy
who had a speech impediment.
Oh, yes. Yes.
A stutter.
I forgot to ask you about that. Yeah, I couldn't tell. Tell us about that.
So here's why I get in trouble a lot, because, and this all stems from my speech impediment, which I have a stutter, stammer, and growing up it was really pronounced. And if I get stressed or depressed, it really comes out. Mm-hmm. So I have a hard time communicating, and sometimes you'll notice it if you'll listen to me talk here. Sometimes I'll have a word that kind of gets stuck, and I'll change words. So growing up was awful. And so I went to a speech therapist that was at the school. It was paid for by the school or through the school system. And honestly, A for effort, F for results, because they really didn't know how to handle it. And their word was, okay, stop and think about what you're going to say, and then you should be able to say it, which was the 100% opposite of what I needed to do. If I thought about it, if I do it today, if I really think about a word before I say it, it's going to be hard coming out. Mm-hmm. That's the reason I say I get in trouble, because I just let the words fly, and whatever comes out, comes out. And sometimes I'm like, I really wish I hadn't said that. Because, if I sit there and I think about every single word, it gets really hard, especially the hard consonants, which, when I told you earlier, I started my agency. I was a farmer's agent. That was that was crazy. So I'm trying to be a business owner, and I'm stuttering up a fool, and F is a hard consonant for me. And so here I am. I'm calling a dude this, fresh out of it, no confidence. Hi, this is Adam Koch from Farmers. And they're like, we're not giving this dude any money because he can't even say his own company. So honestly, what it really comes down to is confidence, the lack of filter, just to let it fly. But really, it's a confidence issue. I'm confident, and I know that I can say these words. I'm confident, and I know that I can speak on a microphone in front of a group, that I can sing. I can do all these things in front of people. That it really doesn't bother me. And even if I do get hung up on a word, okay, we'll move on to the next. Not a big deal.
Just to think about this poor boy and grown up in a poor family. Now, I don't want to say you're rich, but you live a pretty good life. you provide for your family, not only provide for your family, you support your community, you support your employees and their family. I know for many others that are listening, maybe they're more successful per se, but I think this is a big successful story alone. If you were just to look at the beginning and now, it's not ending yet. Adam, how many years you plan on running the business? I mean, the impact is ongoing. To me, just looking back the whole story, it's just fascinating.
I think success it's not something I'm actually working for. Mm-hmm. You know, at what point do we say we've been successful? I love what I do. I purposefully surround myself, and I think this is probably key too. I purposefully surround myself with positive and encouraging people. Mm. And I'll be honest with you, if you're a Debbie Downer all the time, I can't hang around you. And there's a reason for that. I'm a mood mirror. Mm. You know what that is? Somebody reflects the mood of the room.
Yeah.
Or the mood of the group, or the mood of the person. If you're grumpy, well, doggone it, I'm going to be grumpy too. And I don't want to be grumpy, so I'm not going to surround myself, But look, that doesn't mean I'll shun you, and I'm not going to be friends, and we're not going to be encouraging. Because sometimes people come in the room. You mentioned earlier about the empathy. And I'm very empathetic towards small business owners because I've been there, and it's hard. It is. Anybody who told you this is the easiest thing I ever did is lying, or somehow they were well capitalized by somebody else. Mm. And even then, it's not easy, even if you got the capitalization. So all that to say is, being part of Reveille, I meet a lot of new folks. Being part of the chambers and the other organizations, I meet a lot of business owners. And this is a simple thing you can do to kind of encourage people. And sometimes you'll make them cry, and you don't want to make them cry, but sometimes they need to cry. I have one particular lady that she had started it was a small school, and she'd been in business for a year. And I said, well, how are things going? And the normal answer is they're okay, or they're good, they're fine. Mm-hmm. But I could tell. I was like, okay, how are they really? And, you just see the realization that somebody's actually asking, and you see like the little things forming in her eyes. Yeah. She's about to cry. And I'm like, okay, we're going to go off to the side. And she's like, this is the hardest thing I've ever done. Mm-hmm. It's not going the way I thought it should. And look, for anybody listening, it never goes the way that you think it should. Mm-hmm. It's tough, especially if you don't have Christ in the middle of it. But even then, Christ doesn't say because you open this business and you're Christian that this business is going to flourish. No. It's still tough. And he may not want it to flourish for some reason. And you're like, well, this is dumb because I want it to.
Well, sometimes we need the corrections.
Well, it's, hey, God, if I make $1 million, I'm going to, in this business this year, I'm going to donate 20%. No, you're not. But, but that's a negotiation you have between you and God, and that's not how it works. Mm-hmm. So all I'd say is, just having that conversation and being an outlet for somebody to express their true emotions. This is tough. This is hard. It's really good to know that you're not the only one going through that problem.
You're not alone.
And when you're trying to start a business, when you're going through that depression state, when you're doing whatever it is, in that moment, you are the only one that you can see that's going through that.
Yeah. And I think that's a very good point to land, Adam. I think this is all awesome. And what you mentioned earlier is exactly why we're doing this today. Folks are out there. They're not alone. Maybe many of them are experiencing what you have you experienced 20 years ago, right? Maybe 30 years ago. Mm-hmm. Well, there would be moments and times in life where happy and full of joy and everything goes well and we can praise the Lord and yay, hallelujah. There will be moments in life everything go down. Everything, anything can go down. It will go down at one moment. And we still need to praise the Lord and say, hallelujah. What is this teaching me? What is this leading me? Right?
We, even when it goes wrong, and I say really wrong, we can accuse and blame God. We can turn our back on him. And we say, because you allowed this to happen, I'm running away. Or you can accuse and blame God because you're frustrated or your world is devastated in that moment, and then come to realization that, God's still worthy of praise. Or you can say, in spite of all of this going on, I know God is still good. One of the worst things, and this is everybody out there, one of the worst things you can just say to somebody who just lost somebody that they love, is God has a plan. Don't say that. Look, he very well likely has a plan, but in that moment,
that's not what they need to
all
hear.
they're hearing is, well, God planned for my kid to pass away, or my mom, or my spouse. So the reason I bring that up is there's a music artist named Toby Mac. So Toby Mac lost his son year and a half, 2 years ago, and I'm trying to look up the name of the song. But in the song, if you know the history, or if you know the reason he wrote that song, you'll cry when you hear it every time, because it is his heart saying, in the worst possible moment, this is the worst thing I've ever experienced. I'm praising you because you're still worthy. It's hard. It is so hard to do that. And he mentions in the song, it took him a while to get to that point. God is worthy of praise.
No matter what.
No matter what. But he 100%, I know it with my heart, 100% understands when we cry out to him. In fact, he wants us to cry out to him.
Yes. As a father looking down for sons and daughters, cry out to God.
Yep.
So, for the sake of time, Adam, I wanted to ask you two things. Number one, just share a short information about your current business so people knows where to find you if anybody out there they're looking for some encouragement or insurance.
Sure. And I'll be honest with you, that's also something, the encouragement part. So I have a commercial insurance agency here in the Woodlands called the Koch Insurance Group. I'll spell it weird. I spell it Koch Insurance.
That's your last name.
It is. I also spell that weird, Koch. So, but yeah, so it's Koch Insurance Group. Been here 20 years here in the Woodlands, just north of Houston. But as our reach is throughout the nation, we can go all over the United States. We try to keep it within the lower 48. We're pretty heavy in the construction and contractor space, be it from general liability, bonding, work comp, commercial auto, all of that jazz. We're right in the midst of it. And it's a fun place to play because I get to talk to a lot of business owners, see a lot of construction, see a lot of things. Now we do other things too, but that seems to be kind of our heavy part when it comes to industry, oil and gas. But we'll just do retail. But anyway, all right. I don't want to stay on that. One of the things I really, really enjoy, and it makes me zero money, is I love brand new agents that just need some help. They just, hey man, I don't know how to do this, what to do. Call me up. And say, look, I heard you on the radio. I'll give you 10% off. No, I've been struggling with this industry. I've been struggling with this. I don't know what to do. Even if they're right down the road from us in our community, the more people in our community, even if they're in the same industry you are, the more people in your community that succeed, the better your community is. And to do it right. It's not just be successful in writing or making money in your business, but it's to do it the right way.
Yeah. So for our listeners, if you are a new insurance agent, you need help, you need advices, reach out to Adam. I know him personally. This is a great guy for you to get some encouragement and some guidance if you're new to this industry. Now, the second thing, Adam, we have heard a lot of stories today, and we will ask you to come back. But just for today, if there is one takeaway you wanted to leave to our listeners, what is it?
Yeah, so your attitude, not your attitude, but
I have an attitude problem.
I've been meaning to talk to you about that. No, your attitude in perception and the way that you look at things. My wife has said I am the eternal optimist. And what she says, because of that, you're going to get burned. Because you're going to get taken advantage from time to time. And I'm going to tell you that That's okay. And she said the same thing to me. She says, that's okay, because if you weren't, you wouldn't be who you are.
Right.
And so I want to believe in all aspects of my life that the reason somebody does something is pure and honest and not a deep-seated, reason. And in today's political environment, it's really hard to keep that sometimes. But I want to believe until I know otherwise. So your outlook, though, is so vital, because you can take any situation, take how I grew up. I could have used that as a reason to not succeed. Well, I didn't have all this stuff handed to me, so that's the reason I couldn't. I didn't have a car to reliably get me to school, so that's the reason I couldn't. For some people, that's, it's a reason that they struggle. Absolutely. Is it a reason they can't? It may take longer. It took me 8 years to get in undergrad. Most people go to school for 8 years and they're called doctor, and I'm just called Hey Adam. So it may not work in your timeline. It may not go as fast, but that doesn't mean you can't. The main takeaway is put your faith in God. Understand His timeline is not your timeline. And surround yourself with those that are going to help encourage you, not tear you down. You start a business and everybody's telling you can't do it. Go find some new friends. You're not looking for yes men or yes women that just say yes, yes, yes all the time. But you're looking for people that can encourage you and say, I think you can do it. I know you can do it. It won't be easy. I know you can do it. We had some friends. I know we're kind of running on time, but you splice all this together anyway. Who cares? One of my friends years ago, they're a married couple, and they were one of the first married couples in our church back in college. They're the first ones to have kids. We look up to them as a married couple on how you're supposed to live your life through Christ. Fantastic family. We love them to death even to this day. They wanted to start a nonprofit organization, and they're still out there, so I'll say it, Thrive Again Ministries. And what their ministry is to go out there and to work with missionaries in the field to minister directly to them so that their livelihood and their effectiveness in the mission field is heightened. They go through those same struggles, marriage issues, kid issues, flock issues, whatever it might be. They need some help. So they're working with it. Okay, so all that to say is that was their mission and their goal. And so they were putting their board together, putting together everything. And so they knew that Crystal and I, had some business ownership experience, asked us to, sit down with them over lunch. Here's our plan. Here's what we want to do. And this is how we're going to do it. I'm like, great. I love it. But you don't have a business plan. You're trying to jump off of this. You're trying to work off of faith, which is great, but you need to have a plan behind faith. God tells you to go, but not go without a plan. When we left that lunch, Chris and I were driving back home, and we're like, we just destroyed their mission. We absolutely destroyed it, and we felt awful about it. We didn't hear back from them for like 8 or 9 months. All of a sudden, they call us up. Okay, we have this plan. They've been working on it the whole time.
Okay.
That's what they took away. We took away that we destroyed them. They took it away. Oh, okay. We need to work on this.
Right.
And they came back. Okay, here's it is. And we're like, oh my gosh, we're so glad. We felt so bad about this.
And your point is, it's our own choice. How do you look at things?
Correct.
How do you take them? How do you apply
Correct.
into your life, into your workplace?
Correct. And then surround yourself with the right folks that will help guide you. Apparently, Chris and I were the right folks for them, I guess. I don't know. We felt bad, but yeah, that's a really long takeaway with a lot of caveats. I could talk for more if you want to.
That's awesome. Adam, your favorite Bible story or verse, Romans 5:8.
Correct. God loved us so much that while we were still sinning, He sent Jesus. He didn't wait for us to become clean. He didn't wait for us to do anything because He knew we couldn't do enough to make us worthy of Jesus.
Yeah.
And that's huge. Absolutely huge.
Yeah. Everything is given free. We just need to go take it.
We need to take that first step.
Yeah. Adam, the last thing I would ask you to do today is pray for our audience. regardless where they're at, living conditions, work, no work, kids, no kids, marriage, no marriage, faith, even no faith. Pray for us.
I will. And just to throw this out here, I have still not learned how to pray like the fancy people do in church.
We're not looking for fancy
No,
people.
this is when we pray, we're talking to God.
Yes.
So, God, thank you so much. Thank you so much for the heart of Selena to be able to bring these together, that we can reach folks that are outside who we would normally talk to. I have no clue who's going to listen to this. I have no clue if it's going to affect anybody's heart, God, but I pray that it does, that it gives encouragement to those that are going through depression, that are struggling in life, that they're not alone. There are folks that they don't even know that love them and want them to succeed, want them to have a fantastic life in Christ, that you hold your hand and you reveal yourself over them. Yes. That they can see you, that maybe there's that struggle in life that's keeping them blinded to you, God, that you would take that right now. And whenever somebody listens to this, that struggle is taken from them and held in your hand, God, that at least in that moment, they can see your face, they can feel your embrace, that they know that they are loved, that they are not alone, and that there are people rooting for them.
Yeah.
God, we pray this in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Adam, so much for being with us. We can't wait to have you back, and Crystal to sit beside you and to hear her side of the story.
No. There's only one side of every story, and it's usually not mine. So,
thank you so much for being with us,
Thank you.
Our listeners. This is Grace and New Life. This podcast is brought to you by Payroll Vault Spring, Texas, partnering with GPS Business Solutions. Your story matters. This is Adam Koch.
Howdy.
Thank you. We love you.